Today I'm talking to Teresa Dubby, who is the author of the Phonics with Feeling books that are now on the Spellbet website. So I just wanted to get you to explain, please, Teresa, why did you write the books and why did you call them what you did?
Well, I've wanted to write stories for children for years, in fact, for decades. And I never imagined I'd be writing decodable readers, but in fact, what got me going, what got me to sit down and put pen to paper was realizing that the local school was using a balanced literacy approach to teaching reading, and that I was going to have to teach my grandchildren to read, teach them as much as I could before they started school. And so I got started on that process about 4.5 years ago when my first grandson had just turned 5. I had to find decodable readers, and I realized they were expensive, and borrowed some from the library, and he wasn't really enthusiastic about them. And so I thought, well, I'll try writing some little books for him. And that's how Tom and Oz was written. That's the first book in the series. And yeah, I went on from there. I kept writing books, even once he'd started in kindergarten here in Sydney. I kept on writing the books. My daughter's friends were interested in them when they saw how well he could read. And so I started adding supporting material, and it grew from there. And since I started selling the books on your site, we've developed a better sequence and added about 10 new books. So there'll be about 64 books in the series altogether once it's completed. As far as you wanted to know how
the name, yeah,
this title for this series. So I realized that with the existing series, a lot of people didn't. There were quite a lot of teachers and parents as well who weren't very keen on decodable readers. And I thought about how I could make stories that were more appealing. And I thought, well, there are plenty of good decodable series at the foundation level. And I decided to start at the extended code level. And there were ways of making the stories more interesting. And one of those was by creating characters with more depth. So there would be that kind of emotional engagement, I hope, with those characters. And that kind of engagement would enhance the learning and the retention of the relevant sounds and spellings. So that phonics with feeling, the feeling their gestures towards that kind of emotional engagement, really.
Yes, and some of the children are some of them are horrible, some of them
yes,
are interesting.
Some are horrible, yes. Some are good, and some are bad, and some are a bit of both. So yeah, and I also hope that one can see how the characters learn in the course of a story very often, learn about something about themselves, or learn something about the world that may be interesting to children reading stories as well.
And you've got a few different, some of the stories are more open-ended, so the children are invited to think of how it might end, and you have a play in there in 3 acts, which I did love. And so tell me about your background with writing and literature and books generally.
Well, I've studied and worked on 4 different continents, and when we moved to Melbourne in the early 80s, I did a PhD in English literature, and my focus, the focus of all my academic work since then has been on contemporary fiction. So I've always been interested in stories that was at the time of structuralism and then post-structuralism, and there was a big buzz around how narratives were constructed and how they worked and so on. So I was really interested in that, and I always encouraged my students when I taught at tertiary level, I encouraged students to look at how stories are constructed and what function they play in various contexts and cultures and so on, and how they can either create myths or they can deconstruct myths. So there's the same kinds of principles apply to stories at any level, whether they're for adults or for children. So I would, I had to write story that's in a way that interested me. I wasn't going to be able to write in a different way.
Mm-hmm. And so one of the main purposes obviously is to get kids decoding well. And other points of difference in?
Well, getting kids to decode well is, that's the reason for the book. So lots and lots of practice. So I try and get as many target words into each story as I possibly can without distorting the narrative too much. And my hope is that having those big clusters of sounds and spellings, target sounds and spellings, is useful, and that they're associated with particular characters. So some series have a single set of characters running through the whole series, but I've got a unique character in each story, and so I'm hoping that kind of enhances the retention of learning, that those sounds and spellings. So if you think about Blair on the stairs, if you just mention that character and that story, you evoke that AIR spelling of that sound, and yeah, that was one of the reasons for having those characters whose names include the relevant sound.
So that could be a handy mnemonic for teachers as well, being able to say, oh, it's like the air like in Blair, or it's air like in the red hair. Exactly. If the kids have read that story a lot, then they can, so you don't just say ARE, you can say air, and they try and remember it. Cool. And so it's mainly targeting kids towards the end of their first year of school, which you call kindergarten and we call prep, and other people call foundation. Reception, prep. I can't remember what else it's called. And then also grade 1 and 2.
So the first 5 books are a revision of the foundation code, so possibly for the end of the first year, end of kindergarten, prep or reception, and then moving on to the extended code for year 1. And with the 64 books, the final sets will take them through into year 2 as well, possibly year 3. So the final sets with the more difficult consonants, consonant digraphs and so on.
And you have a lot of words in the books, and how often are you expecting children to read each book, and how, will they read it all at one sitting?
Well, they are longer than most decodable readers, and that allowed me to develop a good narrative arc with tension and a satisfying resolution, and build a character and so on. But I also thought it would be useful to have children reading with parents or with teachers alternate pages. And so because they're longer, it allows for that, so that the adult can read alternate pages and then model the kind of fluency and expression, and then come back to the book again and have the child reading those pages and the adult reading the other pages. So
that's quite a nice way to keep the story going when you're using a lot of horsepower to decode, then to have a little break and sort of pick up the threads of the story again, and then have another go and then pick up. That's quite a nice way to do those longer ones.
Yes, and to read them in in a couple of sittings if necessary with younger children. So
yeah. As you know, I've made up quizzes on the on Word Wall to go with all your books, and there's printable ones. And yeah, the kids that we've been working with, ones that I've been working with, have been enjoying having a quiz. A quiz is fun. A test is not fun, but a quiz is fun. Yes, apparently. And especially having a yes/no one where it could be 50% right. You know, even if you haven't got a clue, you can still have a chat. So hopefully that's a useful follow-up. And the feedback you've had from your grandkids and others?
Well, my grandkids have been part of the process all along. I test the books on them. They give, they don't hold back if they think something doesn't work or they don't like the illustrations or whatever. And a lot of the ideas come from observing them and what they get up to and so on. And they are excellent readers, and they love reading, which is the best thing, and they're good writers and good spellers as well. And the oldest of the grandchildren, he's now 9.5, and he still reads the books. If they're lying around when he's here, he'll pick them up and read them again. And he's instructed me to let him know every time I produce a new book, because he wants to make sure he reads that book. So that makes me
the best proofreading you can get.
Yeah, exactly. And I've had good feedback from, I can read you a couple of comments from people who've bought them and have been using them. So a student read the whole of Tom and Oz today and was so excited to read a 16-page book, he asked to read another one. The stories managed to have really great storylines, so the kids want to find out what happens next. And then another comment was, I love them. Some decodable books are somewhat nonsensical, but yours are never like that. At the end of reading, I am left pondering, and the kids and I have a great discussion. So that's the kind of commentary that really makes me feel that I'm achieving something of what I've set out to achieve.
Yeah, and that's the kind of feedback I've had as well. Yeah, with kids saying, the kid who read the one about Benjen, and when the little girl was trying to go into the den with Ben, and he's like, yeah, that's what my sister always does. She always wants in on whatever I'm doing. It's very explosive frustration. It's like, okay, that's a feeling.
That's great. I love to hear that kind of feedback.
Yeah, cool. And anything else you'd like to say about your books?
I love doing this work. I love creating these books, creating the stories and the illustrations, and the two go side by side. I create a story, and then I start the illustrations, and I start identifying with the characters. Then I go back and change the story a bit, and so on. I really enjoy it, and I just wanted to say, since I've been selling the books from the Spelfabet shop, it's added another dimension of interest and enjoyment. So thank you for that. And I feel like that working together, we've got a really great sequence going now.
Yeah, it's been great for us as well, because decodable books are something that I was like, oh, we should have some of those, but I don't know how to write them and I haven't got time. And then when your website wasn't working for you, it's like, oh, I've already got a website. We can collaborate. So it's great. My webmaster is very impressed that you can write books and illustrate them. And so hopefully. Yeah,
well, it's been a process of learning, bit by bit.
You're very talented. You're very talented. We're very impressed down here.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Is there something else that?
No, I think we've covered all the bases.
Thank you very much. Hopefully people found that informative. And it's great to have the new extended code set 3 on the website now as well. And we look forward to the rest of them when you've got time to finish them.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.